Okay, it's recording now, which is good. And Sarah's green recorder, it says
I
on.
don't know why that happens. I had to do an assignment where I had to have like some recorder on my Zoom, and
Mhm.
I don't know how to get rid of that. And every time I join a
Mm,
Zoom, it
I see.
also joins.
Hmm. Sarah's green recorder. All right,
I know, it's weird.
right. You have somebody that is part of you that's living on Zoom.
I know it's weird, but I think it'll be gone when I'm not on my UT email. I don't even think I'm on my UT email, so I don't know.
Hmm. Okay. All right. So let's give it another 20 seconds or so, and then we'll get started. Okay. Let me also just very quickly check my email in case somebody wants to join and they're
I
not
do
able
know
to
that
do it.
they're doing like a
Yeah,
there's
some
like a
kids,
talent show.
yeah, I know. I actually saw Yulia and I saw Ariana, etc. there. But I know that Paulina said that she wanted to join this. And so
That was funny.
she presumably was aware of the link and everything that I sent out through Canvas, right? So let me just send just to be kind of doubly sure that everyone has the email. I'll just send a quick reminder. Um, and then we'll get started. All right.
I'm
Okay.
also friends with Paulina. We're doing the mall assignment on Sunday, so
I
she
see you're in the
needs
same
help. I can
group.
help her. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. So I missed Conjoint 1 and 3, but I was there for 2. And so I was trying to piece together like
Mm-hmm.
all of the pieces. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think based on what we did in previous classes, I got a regression output.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you some context on what I did for my like
Mm-hmm.
profiles. I did HEB,
Mm-hmm.
and there are 2 levels for my price. There are
Mm-hmm.
3 levels from like distance to house.
So,
Um,
how did you operationalize price? Did you just tell them one HEB is more expensive than the other one?
I said on like an average trip, $100 or
Yeah.
$125.
Okay. That's fine. Right.
Um, and then I have 3 levels for distance from house,
Mm-hmm.
5 miles, 10 miles, 15 miles.
Mm-hmm.
I have 3 different store sizes, small, medium, large.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have pickup option, yes or no.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Um, my base case was the cheaper option, the closest option, smaller store with no pickup option.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. And then I got the ratings, ran the
Actually,
regression.
base case should be the more expensive one because remember, you want to give the dummy code of 0 when it's at the most inferior level. People presumably don't want to pay a higher price. And
Right.
so it's kind of counterintuitive, but a little bit, but you want to make the base one, or, if that, what you mean by that is that you're giving the dummy code of 0 to that level of the feature, then it needs to be for the higher priced one.
Wouldn't that just be reflected in my regression coefficient? Because
You'll
my
get a
regression coefficient's
you'll get a
negative.
negative regression coefficient if you do the
Yeah.
opposite. Yeah.
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 That's what I
So
had.
that's why you're getting the negative coefficient. Negative coefficients are fine. It's just that they're a little more, again, counterintuitive, right? Um, then in the part words, you're going to have to convert the negatives into positives in order to add it all up. Otherwise, you're going to get a negative denominator. And if one of them is positive and the other one's negative, then they're going to cancel each other out. It's going to lead to some confusion. So I would say that, what you want to do is perhaps redo your data collection. Um, Actually, you don't need to redo the data collection. All you need to do is the dummy codes need to be appropriate. Um, I can show it to you very quickly on in an example if you want.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't think I have any problem interpreting the negative coefficients.
Okay. All right.
Um,
So
can I share
all the
my
coefficients are
screen?
negative right now?
All the coefficients are negative, meaning the
Yeah.
base case was the best
Yeah.
option. Um,
Mm-hmm.
do you mind if I share my screen?
Yeah,
Can I
no,
do
no,
that?
no, no, no problem. Hey, Paulina, you're here. You're able to hear us?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey girl.
Hey.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay, beautiful. These were my regression coefficients.
Mm-hmm.
So my base case was the best option.
Mm-hmm.
And then these were my regression coefficients. And then I converted them into part worth percentages by doing the estimate over the
Yeah,
sum.
you got it. Yeah.
And so these are my part worths. They add up to 100. And then I did like the relative importance
Mm-hmm.
by doing
Yeah.
like the range over the total.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know
Here's
why
my
you're
little
calling it
graph.
range. It's generally called the coefficient, right? The regression coefficient. Is that what you mean by
But
range?
what if they're three? Because like distance from house, they're three levels. So like
Yeah.
the best
Yeah.
level
So,
was
so, so,
0.
okay. So here's where, this is fine. This is like the part words, but, I talked about this concept of level part words. Okay. So you'll have a part worth for 10 miles. You'll have another part worth for 15 miles. Likewise,
Yeah.
you'll have a part worth for medium store and another part worth for large store. And I think that what you've done is you've kind of added, oh no, you've kind of completely ignored the part worth for the 10 miles and the medium store.
Uh,
You
correct.
yeah,
Because medium was in the middle, so I did the range over the total.
yeah, yeah. So then you're going to be missing some nuances. You're not going to be able to answer a question such as how much more would this person be willing to pay to go from 10 miles to 1 mile? You'll only be able to answer the question, how much more will this person be willing to pay to go from 15 miles to 1 mile, right? 1 mile was the lowest distance, or was it
5.
5 miles? Okay, 5 miles, whatever the number was. Okay, so you're not going to be able to answer some questions if you ignore those part words, those level part words. Does it make sense?
Okay, so you suggest doing it for every single
Yeah, doing it for every single
coefficient.
thing. But what you can do is you can have a part worth for distance from house. That part worth will be 50 plus 40. So, actually it'll be 27 and 34. So you need to kind of look at the percentages rather than the coefficients.
Okay.
So those are your level part worths, and the addition of those two together will be the part worth for distance from home.
The addition of these percentages are the part worth for distance from home.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the overall part worth percentage for distance from home.
Yeah, overall that is, but we're not really going to use that. In my example in class, I only did the level part words. I did not do the overall part worth. I don't, for kind of illustration purposes, if you actually did work for HEB, you might be able to say that, look, distance does matter for these respondents a lot. So the closer in we are, the better off we are. If you had gotten a result where the level part worth for 10 miles was 2%, right? And level part worth for 15 miles was 35%, then you might say that, well, they just don't want to be more than 10 miles away. That's all. So anywhere within 10 miles is okay. But here, you actually have a pretty significant one for both 10 and 15, which means that, closer in, the better. It's, you get penalized for every additional mile that you're away from people's homes, or at least this person's home. But anyway, for all the other calculations, you do not need the part words, the addition across the two levels. You only need the level part words. So you need the 7.38% and then the 27% and the 34% and all those things. And I want you to, in the report, answer the question, how much more would this person be willing to pay to go from 10 miles to 5 miles, as well as from 15 miles to 5 miles.
Yes. So I didn't know how to incorporate these part worth percentages into, like, we had learned it previously a different way, and I was confused about the way that you had taught it. So I did a
Mm.
workaround.
Mhm.
So this is what I did. And on the right is how I was trying to track how you taught
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
compared to what I did.
Earlier.
So like I found the difference in price,
Mhm.
and then I got the utility per dollar.
Mhm.
And then I
You got
found
the
the difference
utility per
in,
dollar. Okay.
yeah, so
You didn't do the dollars per util. You didn't do the monetary value of each util.
well, I did on the right, I did the utility per mile.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I calculated the willingness to pay for 5 miles instead of 10 miles.
For 5 miles.
So the
Uh,
trade-off between the distance and the trade-off,
for an extra 5 miles.
yes.
Okay. I'd have
Because
to
here I'm
look.
using
Go ahead.
the estimate. I just didn't even incorporate the part worths. And here how you taught it, I think the 27 was yeah, this was the part worth for 10 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And then what is this? This is
The monetary value
25.
of each utility. Yeah.
Oh, so it's like the number of dollars difference over, I don't know where that 7 is coming from.
What's coming from?
That's divided by 7.38. Oh, so
Yeah. Yeah.
percentage here. So do you think that this is equal to this?
It looks like it, but that is for 5 miles, whereas
Yeah,
this
and
is
then
for
this I
10
did
miles.
5 to 15. And then I was gonna do 10 to 15.
Mm-hmm. I have to look at the calculations on the left side, but the calculations there on the right side is how I've been doing it, right? Or at least how I taught it.
I think so. I was just trying to track it from the slides.
Yeah. I mean, does it make sense for you, the stuff on the right side?
Um, I'm confused why you're using the part worth percentage rather than just using the estimate itself.
Because the estimate, so let's go back to the previous slide, right? So by estimate, you mean
These.
40.123 or
Yes.
51.57, etc.
Yes.
Okay. So what's going to happen is, on the next slide where you had the calculations, did you do it using part words or did you do
Yeah,
it?
so I use the part worths.
Right.
Like here are the estimates up
Mhm.
here.
Mhm.
So -10 is the estimate for 125. 100 is the base, so I'm assuming that that estimate is 0.
Mhm.
This is the change in dollars. This is the difference in the part worths. So I
Mhm.
got the utilities per dollar.
Mhm.
So I'm confused why I use the part worth percentage.
Because if you use the coefficient directly, you've not scaled it in a way that it makes an apples to apples comparison. When you do the part words, you're dividing everything by the denominator, right? You remember in the previous thing you had, like, you added all the part words up, all the coefficients up, sorry. You added all the coefficients up, and then you got a denominator that was 148 or something like that, from what I remember from
Sure.
the slide.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that if you go directly and use the 10.92 for the $125, that's the estimate, and 40.123, you're going to you might run the risk of getting numbers that are not scaled. So you want the extent to which you want to be able to compare across features, how important one feature is relative to the other feature. And without dividing it by the denominator, you're not going to be able to get that. And so on the other tab that you have here, the new trade-offs tab, you have WTP for 5 miles instead of 10 miles is 91.86. That looks similar to 91.463.
Yeah, here I use rounding. just
Yeah,
to
sure.
see if I could figure out your
Sure,
method.
but that could just be an accident that it came close to it. So at this point, Sarah, I can walk you through the logic for why it is that I'm doing it the way that I am. I think it'll just take too long for me to kind of, go to what it is that you're used to or what it is that you're using on the left side. Okay, so let's
Okay.
just do this. I'm just going to, give you an example of what I've done.
Okay.
I think because you missed the classes, you're not able to perhaps kind of follow the logic behind what it is that I've done. Okay.
Okay.
And then you can ask me questions if you have. So
Okay.
Paulina, before I do that though, did you have a question that you want me to address, which may be easier to address for me quickly, because I'm going to go through the lecture with Sarah now.
Yeah, actually, I think I'm kind of confused as well. I couldn't attend one of the lectures
Mhm.
of Conjoint, but I have like two simple questions. So
Mhm.
my first question is, are we running a choice based Conjoint or just a Conjoint?
You're running a ratings-based conjoint.
Okay, what's the difference then? Because I think maybe that's the thing, because I remember like from our previous classes, we
Mhm.
did the choice based.
Okay. In choice-based conjoint, you would give people two options and you would ask them to choose one versus the other. And then you kind of replace those two options with two other options and ask them to choose one of those two. I don't know if that's how you did it, but that's how usually in choice-based conjoint, people's preferences are elicited. Okay. Did you
Okay.
actually do a project where you interviewed people?
Yes,
Physically?
yes, we
Okay.
did. Yeah.
Is that how you did it? You showed them some profiles and asked them, if I were to show you profile 1 or profile 2, which one would you choose?
It was rankings based, so we did like put these in order of how like 1 through 7. There's 7 options, put these in order. I think that's what we did. It was in the summer.
Okay.
Yeah, we also did that on for our pricing class. So we did like in a platform, we put like all the attributes, and the computer like do these different profiles, so people can choose and select which one of them work better for them.
Okay. Yeah. So in any case, in a choice-based conjoint, you're asking people to choose. Okay.
Yeah.
Showing them two options and having them choose. And then you come up with the attractiveness of the various options based off of how often a particular option was chosen. Okay. Compared to
Okay.
other options. In a ratings-based conjoint, you're showing them one option at a time and asking them to rate it on a 100-point scale or a 7-point scale or whatever scale you want to use. Okay, I've generally used a 100-point scale. And so that's the difference, is that you're not having them make a choice, you're having them rate things. That's why it's called a ratings-based conjoint. Does it
Okay.
help?
Yes, yes. I think it's
Right.
just
So,
like
so the dependent
option is
variable.
just one. Okay.
Hmm?
Attribute. It's just you're asking one attribute at a time instead of like
Not
having a.
attribute, one profile or one option at a time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Attribute is something like price or distance from home. You're not doing it one attribute at a time. You're not asking them for ratings of attributes. You're asking them for ratings of a profile, right? Of an option that exists in the market.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What is your second question? Actually,
Uh,
why don't I do this, Paulina? Because this question that you asked me would have again been a little bit easier for me to explain had I pulled up my slides. So
Okay.
Oh, do you want
why
me to
don't you
stop
go ahead?
sharing?
Yeah, you can
Do you
stop.
want me to stop sharing?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, so go ahead and ask your second question. Meanwhile, I'll just pull up my slides.
Yeah, my second question is about like one of the attributes that we have to choose, like the price thing. I
Mhm.
wasn't sure, like if you choose like a grocery store, like how would you say like
Mhm.
different prices? Like you're not
Yeah.
choosing a category. Like if you choose soap or whatever, you can choose like a price range, but I don't know how to handle
Mhm.
that attribute
Right.
in
So
like
you
a
have to be a
grocery.
little more kind of creative or something. Basically, you might say that, look, if you bought this basket of goods, you can even be very specific. Say you got some eggs, some bread, some milk, some deodorant, some toilet paper, 5 different things. At store 1, this would come to $50. At store 2, that same basket of goods is going to come to $75.
Okay. Okay.
So in that way, you can kind of differentiate between the prices. Or if you did kind of malls, you might say that, you know, the kinds of stores that this mall has, if you were to buy a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, that'll come to about $35. In this other mall, that's going to come to $200. You know,
Okay.
something like
So
that.
it's just like an overall price instead of like one item price, like
Yeah,
one
I think
overall
that-
price for a category that you're selecting.
Right. So yeah, you'd have to kind of convert this idea of price into something that people can relate to. And you could, I suppose, say something like, if you go to the store, it's going to cost you $25. If you go to that store, it's going to cost you $50. But people might be a little bit confused as to what do you mean if I go to the store, it's going to cost me. So I think it's easier to translate what it means in terms of price if you kind of give them something that they can imagine in their head buying. That's why I'm saying a basket of goods.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. So let's look at this conjoint. Okay, you guys can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to skip all of this as to why it is that we want to do conjoint. And then let me go to this screen here. This was a very early example, very simple example, because it has only 2 levels of 4 attributes, right? And it has accuracy. This is a GPS. So Sarah, you weren't there for this session, I think. Were you there, Paulina, for this session? Do you
Yes.
remember
Yes.
this? All right. So I think that I'll just go through this example really quickly for Sarah's sake, because then I think it's a little bit easier to explain what the logic was in answering those kinds of questions, like, you know, how much more would you be willing to pay for a higher level of a particular feature? Okay, so here accuracy refers to how accurate the GPS is. Within 10 feet, obviously within 10 feet is better, or within 50 feet, which is not as good. 32-hour battery life versus 12-hour, 32 is better. Color screen versus black and white, color is better, obviously, and lower price is better, right? And so this 0, 0, 0, 0 represents the option that is the lowest level on both, on all attributes. And so this is only accurate within 50 feet. This is only got 12-hour battery life. This has got black and white screen and so on. And this person has been presumably asked to rate all 16 possible options, right? And so this person has come up with these ratings. And then when you do the regression analysis, you get these coefficients, right? And if you, in an equation, basically what it means is this person's preference is a function of these kind of numbers. Okay, so we can skip this. Basically, this is the important slide, right? One of the important slides, rather. So you're kind of calculating the part words by looking at the coefficients and adding all the coefficients. You ignore the intercept. You add all the other coefficients, and then the denominator comes to 95.5, and you divide each of these coefficients by that 95.5 to arrive at the part words. And the part words are the relative importance. One second. I don't know why it's saying welcome back here. Okay.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So in the way that you're doing this, you're adding up the estimates and dividing by the individual estimate divided by the sum.
Yeah.
But you kind of manipulated the experiment so that all of your coefficients would be positive. Say there are positive and negative mixed, like you couldn't determine, because in my example, for example, like pickup option has a negative coefficient when I assumed it would be positive. How, like,
Yeah, I
if
understand your
they're
question.
mixed positive and negative numbers, you're not going to get the correct part worth percentage, correct?
So what you need to do is you need to, the reason why you got the negative coefficient, in general, you should get positives if you've dummy coded it in a way that is intuitive. That is that you give zero, the number 0 to a lower level of a feature or the less desirable level of a feature as far as you can predict, right? And you've predicted that people would prefer to pick up as opposed to go and shop themselves. But it turns out that this particular respondent doesn't like that for whatever reason. And that's why you're getting a negative coefficient, right? So your assumption that they would prefer to pick up was incorrect to begin with. And so what you then do is, let's assume that one of these coefficients is negative, right? So this 14.9 is actually negative, let's say. What you would do then is just ignore that negative and then calculate the part worth exactly like you're doing it now. But then in the interpretation of the results, right? So for example, on the next screen, one of the screens I have, what did I say was the color versus black and white, right? So you could ask the question, battery, I don't have that. I have for color. Yeah, I have for color versus black and white, right? So the way in which you would answer this question, how much is this consumer willing to pay for color versus black and white, right? You would kind of reverse that to how much would this person be willing to pay for black and white versus color, because this person actually prefers black and white to color, right? So the coefficient was negative. So your assumption that color would be preferred was wrong. And so
I understand.
yeah, so that's what would happen. Otherwise, it would be exactly the same calculation. And so let me walk you through the logic of this, right? So how much is this consumer willing to pay for improved accuracy, right? So that goes from 50 feet to 10 feet accuracy. So the first thing that you do is calculate the monetary value of each util. And so if you go back here, so, you know, overall, when you add all the part words, obviously it's going to come to 100, right? So by design, we made it such that the total number of points is 100. And now you're dividing those 100 points across all these attributes to convey a sense of relative importance out of 100 points, right? So it's a percentage. And so the part worth for price, right, is 43, which means that price matters a lot for this person. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out, okay, they're getting 43 benefits or 43 units of benefit, utils out of a change in $100. So I can calculate how much each util is worth. Once you have that, it becomes a very easy translation then to figure out how much each of the other attributes are going to be worth, right? Going from the lower level of the feature to the other higher level of the feature. So if I
Right. So the part worth is actually 43. It's not 43%.
yeah, you can, it is percent and it's 43 as well. I mean, it's a, you know, so I don't know if you've come across questions like this. If you could have money and fame and power and you have 100 points across all three, how much would you assign to money versus power versus fame? You know, what's most important to you? And somebody could say, I'd give all 100 to money, okay? So that gives other people an idea of what really motivates them, right? So that's kind of what we're trying to do here is that, you know, we have 100 points to play with. How would you distribute those 100 points across all these features is what's going on here, okay? And we're deriving those points that they're allocating to the different features based off of their preferences or evaluations or ratings that they've provided us before. Once we have that, and once one of the features is price, then we can calculate how much each of those units that they've had, you know, the opportunity to distribute across all these features, each of those units, how much it's worth. And then we can go back and answer questions like, okay, so for going from 50 feet to 10 feet, this person gets 10 points, 10 additional utils. And we already know how much each util is worth because we have already calculated it by looking at, okay, they get 43 utils from 100 points, $100, sorry. So that means that each util is about $2.20 or something. So they should be willing to pay about $22, $23 for improved accuracy.
Sure.
So that's,
Got it.
to me, this is the simpler way to do it. I don't know, you know, you showed me something on your screen on the left side that seemed to me a little more complicated, but maybe it's just as simple. And, you know, there's different approaches that one can use, but all of them should lead to the same answer in the end.
I think we're doing the exact same thing.
Okay. Okay.
I think we're doing the same thing. I just didn't really understand your terminology, but I'm understanding it now. I didn't understand the percentage part worth and like how that was contributing to the willingness to pay. But when you just simplified it like that, that made more sense.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you want us to then continue and do that like $5 versus $10, $5 versus $15,
It won't be
5 miles.
dollars, right? It won't be dollars. It'll
Oh
be
yeah, miles,
yeah.
miles.
Right. Yeah.
And then
yeah.
for
So
every level.
yeah, for every level. So what you'll have is you'll have, I think, 2 + 2 + 1. You'll have 5 different questions that you can answer. Okay, how much more money is this person willing to pay to go from 15 miles far away to 5 miles, 10 miles far away to 5 miles. You could
10 to
also
15.
15 to 10, you could answer it, but it would have to make an assumption that the amount of utils that this person gains from
It's
going from 15 to
constant.
10 is either constant, or you take the difference in the level part words that you got. Now you can probably share your screen. I can explain to you what I mean by that.
Yeah. Okay. How do I do this? How did I do that before?
Oh, there's a share screen at the bottom of the Zoom.
Oh. Here I come. Okay.
Go to that tab that says part worth and importance, I think, or new part worth. Yeah, this one. Yeah. So you see that you have the part worth for 10 miles is 27%, right?
Yes.
On row 4. And then part worth for 15 miles is 34%. Okay. And
Yes.
what that means is, compared to 5 miles, this person gets. So this is where I think the labeling of these things, if they were reversed, it'd be easier to talk about. So here it almost seems like this person wants to pay money to go from 5 miles to 15 miles, because that's the label of the attribute level that you have there on the in column A, right? But anyway, so the idea is that the person is gaining 27 utils from going from a store that's 10 miles away to going to a store that's 5 miles away. And the person is gaining 34 utils to go from a store that's 15 miles away to go to a store that's only 5 miles away. And so, you can kind of argue that the person gains about 34 minus 7 would be 7, right? About 7 utils to go from a store that's 15 miles away to go to a store that's only 10 miles away. Okay. So if you
So like they care much more about going from 5 to 10 than going from 10 to 15.
Yeah, the opposite, like I would phrase it the opposite of how you phrased it.
They're
They
more
get a lot
mad.
more to go from.
They're less mad.
Yeah. So this is why I think that, the dummy coding of these things becomes important. It's just more intuitive or easy to understand when you dummy coded it in a way that the part words turn out to be positive. But it's fine. What you've done it, and you've already collected data. Just make sure that in the writing of it, you say that, these negative coefficients are there because you coded it in such a way that the desirable level got a lower dummy code.
Right. Okay. I just need to be careful when I'm interpreting. Okay. I understand what's happening. So I need to find the monetary value of each utility, and then use the part worth, not the estimate, or I guess I could see if they match, but use the part worth.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what happens if you use the estimate. What happens when you use the estimate is that, because it's not all totaling up to 100, it may not it may not accurately convey the relative importance of the different attributes. So there's some chance that I haven't actually worked through the numbers, but I'm 100% sure that in some contexts that is going to lead to a problem. Okay. And I just have to think through what context it'll lead to a problem. So you should work with the part words rather than the coefficients or the estimate.
Okay, so I'm gonna continue with the right side of my screen, and then maybe I'll check with the left because it just looks pretty. And then after that, I just do the write-up.
Yeah, after that you do the write-up. Yeah.
Okay, I understand what's happening.
All right.
I'm feeling much better.
Good. That's good to know. That's why I'm here. Okay, so Paulina, what about you? Do you have the second question?
No, I think I'm all set. I don't have any questions. I will follow whatever we like the slides, and make sure that we like the interpretation about the coefficients. Just
perfect. I'm going to stop the recording now.